Welcome to Holistic Literary, where we explore the profound connections between mind, body, spirit, and the stories that shape our lives. Today, we invite you to delve into the transformative world of Family Constellation with our latest audiobook, Another Self. Another Self is a journey into the hidden dynamics within our family systems, those unseen forces that influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Through powerful storytelling, inspired by real lives, this book uncovers the ancestral patterns that we unknowingly carry with us, shedding light on how these inherited stories shape our present reality. As you listen, you'll discover the profound healing that comes from recognizing and honoring the experiences of our ancestors. Drawing inspiration from spiritual pioneers like Bert Hellinger, Wolynn, and Judith Hemming, Another Self guides you through the process of releasing the burdens of the past and stepping into your true, authentic self. Whether you're new to Family Constellation or familiar with its practices, this audiobook offers a deep, compassionate exploration of how our family histories affect us, and how we can find freedom and healing through understanding and acceptance. Join us on this journey and discover the power of your own Another Self. Key themes of Another Self: the power of ancestral influence, exploring how the unresolved emotions, traumas, and experiences of our ancestors shape our thoughts, behaviors, and life choices, often in ways we are unaware of. Healing through Family Constellation, understanding Family Constellation as a therapeutic practice that reveals hidden family dynamics and offers a path to healing generational wounds. Invisible loyalties, examining the subconscious bonds that tie us to our family's fate, compelling us to repeat patterns and experiences out of loyalty to our ancestors. Uncovering the true self, the journey of disentangling from inherited family patterns to discover and embrace our authentic self, free from the burdens of the past. Compassionate understanding, recognizing the importance of approaching our family history and personal struggles with compassion, as a means of healing and fostering deeper connections. Intergenerational trauma, delving into how trauma can be passed down through generations, influencing our emotional landscape, and how awareness can break the cycle. The role of vulnerability in healing, highlighting the courage it takes to confront our deepest family wounds and the vulnerability required to heal and transform those wounds into sources of strength. Restoring balance in family systems, exploring how Family Constellation work aims to restore balance and harmony within the family system, allowing individuals to live more freely and fully. The intersection of personal and collective healing, understanding that healing individual wounds contributes to the collective healing of the family and, by extension, humanity. Living beyond the past, encouraging the listener to move beyond the shadows of their family's past, embracing a future defined by choice, awareness, and authentic self-expression. Chapter 1: The Power of Ancestral Influence. Imagine walking through life with an invisible backpack strapped to your shoulders. Inside this backpack, there are not only the experiences of your own life, but also the memories, emotions, and traumas of those who came before you, your parents, grandparents, and ancestors from generations past. You may not see this backpack, but you feel its weight every day. It shapes the way you think, the choices you make, and the emotions you experience. This invisible backpack is what we call the ancestral influence, and it's a concept that's deeply rooted in the practice of Family Constellation. Our ancestors' unresolved emotions, traumas, and experiences don't just vanish when they pass away, they often linger within the family system, passed down unconsciously from one generation to the next. The echoes of unresolved grief, Sarah's story. Sarah always felt a deep, inexplicable sadness. Despite a loving family, a fulfilling job, and a circle of close friends, this sorrow clung to her like a shadow. It wasn't until she attended a family constellation workshop that she began to understand where this sadness was coming from. During the session, Sarah discovered that her maternal grandmother had lost a child in infancy, a loss that had never been fully grieved or acknowledged. This unspoken grief had been carried by Sarah's mother, who in turn passed it on to Sarah without either of them realizing it. In the constellation, Sarah was able to see how this unresolved pain had woven itself into the fabric of her life, manifesting as her own persistent sadness. As Sarah participated in the constellation, she symbolically honored her grandmother's loss, allowing the grief to be expressed and released. Through this process, Sarah experienced a profound shift. Her sadness began to lift, replaced by a sense of peace she hadn't felt before. She had, in a sense, returned the emotional burden to its rightful place in the family history, freeing herself from carrying it any longer. This story is reminiscent of what Mark Wolynn describes in his book, It Didn't Start With You. Wolynn explores how inherited family trauma can shape our lives in ways we might not even realize. By recognizing these hidden connections, we can begin to heal not just ourselves, but the entire family system. Inherited trauma, the story of Tom and the war that never ended. Tom was a successful lawyer, but he struggled with chronic anxiety, especially when faced with conflict. He would freeze up, feel overwhelmed, and often avoid situations that required him to assert himself. This pattern puzzled him because on the surface, there was no clear reason for his anxiety. During a family constellation session, Tom uncovered a powerful truth. His grandfather had fought in World War II and had returned home with severe PTSD, which was never treated or discussed. The anxiety and hypervigilance that had plagued Tom's grandfather were passed down to Tom's father, who then unknowingly passed them on to Tom. The constellation revealed that Tom's anxiety wasn't just his own, it was a continuation of his grandfather's wartime trauma. Once Tom acknowledged this connection, he could begin to separate his own feelings from those inherited from his grandfather. He no longer had to carry the fear of a war that had ended long before he was born. This echoes the work of an Anselin Schutzenberger, a pioneer in transgenerational therapy, who observed that unresolved trauma can manifest in descendants even when the original event occurred many generations ago. In her book, The Ancestor Syndrome, Schutzenberger details how these hidden legacies influence our lives until they are brought to light and consciously processed. The burden of unspoken secrets, Emma's unraveling. Emma had always felt a strange sense of guilt, as if she was carrying a burden she couldn't explain. She was a kind and caring person, but she constantly worried that she wasn't doing enough for others, that somehow she was letting people down. This sense of guilt was so pervasive that it affected her self-esteem and her relationships. When Emma decided to explore this feeling through family constellation, she was shocked by what she discovered. Her great-grandfather had been involved in a scandal, something that had brought shame to the family. This secret had been buried, never spoken of, yet its shadow had loomed over subsequent generations. In the constellation, Emma was able to see how this unspoken shame had been passed down, influencing the family's collective sense of self-worth. By acknowledging the secret and the impact it had on her family, Emma could finally let go of the guilt that had never truly belonged to her. She was able to reclaim her sense of worth, free from the shadows of the past. This story brings to mind the teachings of Bert Hellinger, the founder of Family Constellation. Hellinger often spoke about the entanglements within family systems, how secrets, guilt, and unresolved conflicts can bind us, sometimes for generations. By bringing these hidden dynamics to light, we can begin to untangle ourselves from them and live more freely. The healing power of awareness. What these stories show us is that the influence of our ancestors is real and powerful, shaping our thoughts, behaviors, and life choices in ways we may not be consciously aware of. But they also show us that healing is possible. When we bring these hidden influences to the surface, when we acknowledge the unresolved emotions, traumas, and experiences of our ancestors, we can begin to release their hold on us. By doing this work, we not only heal ourselves, but also honor our ancestors. We recognize their struggles and pain, and in doing so, we free ourselves from carrying their burdens. This process allows us to step into our own lives more fully, unencumbered by the past, and open to the possibilities of the present and future. As you listen to another self, I invite you to reflect on your own life. Are there patterns or emotions that don't seem to have an obvious source? Could they be echoes of your ancestral past? By exploring these questions, you might just discover another self, one that is lighter, freer, and more aligned with your true nature. Chapter 2: Healing Through Family Constellation. Family Constellation is a unique therapeutic practice that reveals the intricate and often hidden dynamics within our family systems. It's a method that allows us to see the invisible threads that connect us to our ancestors, showing us how their unresolved issues can influence our lives in profound ways. By bringing these hidden dynamics into the light, Family Constellation offers a path to healing not just for ourselves, but for our entire family lineage. The invisible thread: my first experience with Family Constellation. I remember the first time I participated in a Family Constellation session. I was curious but skeptical. How could a group of strangers standing in a room possibly reveal anything about my family's history? But I went in with an open mind, ready to see what might unfold. During the session, I was asked to set up a constellation for my family. I chose participants from the group to represent my mother, father, and siblings, and placed them in positions that felt intuitively right. As the facilitator guided us, something remarkable began to happen. The participants, who knew nothing about my family, started to exhibit behaviors and emotions that perfectly mirrored the dynamics I had experienced growing up. One of the most profound moments came when the person representing my father spoke words that echoed exactly what my real father had said to me many times. It was as if the essence of my father had somehow been channeled through this stranger. The facilitator then guided us through a process of acknowledging the unspoken pain and tension in my family, things that had never been openly discussed but were always felt. Through this process, I gained a deeper understanding of the unresolved issues between my parents and how those had affected me. It was a revelation to see how much of my own emotional struggles were tied to these hidden family dynamics. By the end of the session, I felt a sense of relief, as if a weight I didn't even know I was carrying had been lifted. The healing wasn't immediate or complete in that moment, but it was a powerful first step on a journey of understanding and transformation. Releasing the Burden: a story of generational healing. In another session I attended, a woman named Laura shared her story. She had been struggling with chronic anxiety and feelings of unworthiness for most of her life. Despite years of therapy, she couldn't shake the sense that she didn't deserve happiness or success. When she set up her family constellation, it became clear that these feelings weren't entirely her own. Laura's constellation revealed a deep family wound. Her great-grandfather had lost everything during the Great Depression, leading to a family legacy of fear, scarcity, and shame. This trauma had been passed down through the generations, with each descendant unconsciously carrying a piece of it. Laura's anxiety and self-doubt were the latest manifestations of this inherited burden. The facilitator helped Laura recognize this connection and guided her through a process of symbolically returning the burden to her ancestors. This wasn't about rejecting or dishonoring them, but rather acknowledging their pain and choosing not to carry it forward. As Laura let go of the weight she had been carrying, she felt a profound shift, her anxiety lessened, and she began to feel more deserving of the happiness and success she had longed for. This process, as described by Bert Hellinger, the creator of Family Constellation, shows us that we are deeply connected to our ancestors in ways that are often hidden from our conscious awareness. By bringing these hidden dynamics into the open, we can begin to heal the wounds that have been passed down through our family lines. The Healing Circle, my journey with a client's constellation. As I became more involved in family constellation work, I had the opportunity to facilitate sessions for others. One session that stands out involved a client named James, who came to me with a persistent feeling of being stuck in life. No matter what he did, he couldn't seem to move forward. His career, relationships, and personal growth all felt blocked. When we set up James's constellation, it quickly became apparent that his sense of being stuck was linked to his relationship with his father. James had always felt a deep sense of responsibility to live up to his father's expectations, but no matter what he achieved, it never seemed to be enough. The constellation revealed that this dynamic was rooted in his father's own unresolved relationship with his grandfather, a man who had been harsh and critical, never showing love or approval. Through the constellation, James was able to see that he had been unconsciously trying to heal this generational wound by seeking his father's approval. The facilitator guided James in a powerful exercise where he symbolically released himself from the need to carry this burden. He acknowledged the pain that had been passed down through the generations, but he also chose to step out of this pattern and create a new path for himself. After the session, James reported feeling a new sense of freedom. He no longer felt the need to constantly prove himself, and he began to make decisions that were aligned with his true desires rather than what he thought his father or grandfather would want. This newfound clarity and sense of self allowed him to move forward in his life in ways he had never been able to before. Healing the collective wound, the ripple effect. One of the most beautiful aspects of family constellation is the way it not only heals the individual, but also creates a ripple effect that can bring healing to the entire family system. When one person acknowledges and addresses the hidden dynamics that have been influencing their life, it often creates a shift that affects everyone connected to that system. For example, after my own experience with family constellation, I noticed changes in my relationship with my mother. Our dynamic had always been fraught with tension and misunderstandings, much of which I had assumed was just a natural part of our relationship. However, after my constellation session, something shifted. I'd gained a new perspective on the underlying issues that had been passed down through our family. Patterns of communication, expectations, and unspoken resentments that had their roots in my grandparents' lives. As I became more aware of these dynamics, I found myself responding to my mother with more patience and empathy. I stopped taking her comments so personally and started seeing them as expressions of her own unresolved pain, much of which wasn't even hers to begin with, but rather inherited from the past. This change in me subtly began to change her as well. Without any direct confrontation or discussion, I noticed that she started to soften too. Conversations that would have once escalated into arguments now became opportunities for understanding. It was as if by healing my part of the family system, I had opened a door for her to start healing too. Our relationship grew more peaceful and loving, a transformation I never thought possible. This ripple effect is one of the most profound outcomes of family constellation work. As each of us takes responsibility for healing our own wounds, we create an opportunity for healing within the entire family system. Bert Hellinger, the originator of Family Constellation, often spoke about how the resolution of one person's issues could lead to healing for others within the family, even those who aren't present at the session. This is because we are all interconnected. What affects one member of the family affects the whole. Another client I worked with, Emma, also experienced this ripple effect. Emma had been estranged from her brother for years due to a family feud that had started long before either of them was born. The feud had its roots in a financial dispute between their grandparents, which had created a rift that was passed down to their parents and then to them. During Emma's constellation, it became clear that the feud was less about money and more about unresolved anger and betrayal that had never been acknowledged or healed. By recognizing this and choosing to release herself from the need to continue the feud, Emma was able to reach out to her brother with an open heart for the first time in years. To her surprise, he responded positively, and they slowly began to rebuild their relationship. The healing that started in Emma's constellation spread to her brother, and eventually to other family members as well. The old rift that had torn their family apart began to close, bringing a sense of peace that had been missing for generations. The ongoing journey of healing. Family constellation is not a one-time fix. It's the beginning of an ongoing journey of healing and understanding. The insights gained through this process continue to unfold over time, offering new perspectives and opportunities for growth long after the session has ended. For those who embrace this work, it's a journey that can lead to profound personal transformation, deeper connections with loved ones, and the healing of generational wounds that have shaped their lives. As we learn to navigate the complexities of our family systems with awareness and compassion, we open the door to a new way of being, one that is free from the burdens of the past and aligned with our true selves. In closing, Family Constellation teaches us that, while we are shaped by our family history, we are not defined by it. By bringing the hidden dynamics of our family systems into the light, we can choose to heal, to break free from old patterns, and to create a new legacy for ourselves and future generations. This is the power of Family Constellation, a path to healing, transformation, and a deeper understanding of who we are and where we come from. Chapter 3: Invisible Loyalties, the Subtle Ties That Bind Us. Invisible loyalties are the deep, often subconscious bonds that tie us to our family's fate. These loyalties compel us to repeat patterns, behaviors, and experiences as a way of staying connected to our ancestors, even when these patterns are detrimental to our well-being. These hidden forces can manifest in various ways, through recurring family conflicts, repeated financial struggles, or even in the choice of career paths and relationships. In this chapter, we'll explore how these invisible loyalties operate and how we can bring them to light, allowing us to break free from unhealthy patterns while still honoring our family lineage. The power of unseen bonds, a personal journey. I remember a time when I found myself inexplicably drawn to a career path that didn't align with my passions. Despite my deep interest in writing and helping others through counseling, I chose to pursue a career in business, a decision that left me feeling unfulfilled and disconnected from my true self. It wasn't until I began exploring family constellation work that I understood the invisible loyalty that was guiding my choices. During a constellation session, I discovered that my decision to pursue business was tied to a deep sense of loyalty to my grandfather, who had been a successful entrepreneur. He had always been a source of pride in our family, admired for his hard work and success. However, his life had also been marked by immense sacrifice. He had given up his own dreams to ensure financial stability for the family. Unbeknownst to me, I had internalized the belief that to honor his memory, I needed to follow in his footsteps, even if it meant sacrificing my own happiness. This realization was both enlightening and liberating. I understood that my loyalty to my grandfather didn't have to mean living his life over again. Instead, I could honor him by living my own life fully and authentically. After this breakthrough, I made the difficult decision to leave my business career and pursue my true passions. This choice not only brought me greater fulfillment, but also allowed me to feel genuinely connected to my grandfather in a way that wasn't tied to sacrifice or suffering. A legacy of suffering, the story of Maria. Maria's story is another powerful example of how invisible loyalties can shape our lives. Maria had spent years in a tumultuous relationship with a partner who was emotionally unavailable and often dismissive of her needs. Despite knowing that the relationship was unhealthy, she felt an overwhelming sense of duty to stay and make it work, as though leaving would betray some unspoken vow. Through her family constellation session, Maria discovered that her loyalty was rooted in her grandmother's story. Her grandmother had been abandoned by her husband when Maria's mother was just a child, leaving her to raise her children alone. The shame and pain of this abandonment had created a deep wound in the family, and Maria's mother had grown up with a fierce determination to never give up on her own marriage, no matter how difficult it became. This determination was passed down to Maria, who unconsciously believed that staying in a difficult relationship was the only way to prove her strength and loyalty to her family's legacy. When this invisible loyalty was brought to light, Maria realized that she was carrying the burden of her grandmother's suffering, a burden that wasn't hers to bear. She was able to see that honoring her grandmother didn't mean repeating her struggles. Instead, it meant acknowledging the pain of the past while choosing a different path for herself. With this newfound clarity, Maria found the courage to leave the unhealthy relationship and begin a new chapter in her life, one that allowed her to create a healthier, more fulfilling partnership. The burden of success, breaking free from family expectations. Another common form of invisible loyalty involves the pressure to succeed, or, conversely, to fail, in order to remain loyal to our family's expectations or unspoken rules. This kind of loyalty can manifest in various ways, such as a fear of surpassing a parent's achievements, or an unconscious need to struggle financially because it mirrors the experiences of previous generations. I once worked with a client named David, who had always struggled with money despite being highly skilled and hardworking. No matter how much he earned, he seemed to find ways to lose or mismanage it, leaving him constantly on the edge of financial ruin. During his family constellation session, it became clear that David's financial struggles were tied to an invisible loyalty to his father, who had faced similar difficulties. David's father had grown up in poverty, and had worked tirelessly to provide for his family, often at the expense of his own well-being. Although David admired his father's dedication, he had unconsciously internalized the belief that success would mean abandoning his father's legacy of struggle and sacrifice. This belief created a deep-seated conflict within him, causing him to sabotage his own success as a way of staying loyal to his father's memory. Through the constellation, David was able to recognize this pattern and understand that his loyalty to his father didn't require him to repeat his father's hardships. Instead, he could honor his father by embracing the opportunities available to him and creating a new legacy of success and abundance. After the session, David began to make healthier financial decisions, and his relationship with money improved significantly. He no longer felt the need to sabotage his success and was able to move forward with a sense of freedom and possibility. Navigating invisible loyalties, steps to healing. Recognizing and healing invisible loyalties requires deep introspection and a willingness to confront the hidden dynamics within our family systems. Here are a few steps that can help in this process. Awareness. The first step is to become aware of the invisible loyalties that may be influencing your life. Reflect on patterns or behaviors that seem to repeat across generations in your family. Consider how these patterns might be connected to feelings of loyalty or obligation. Acknowledgement. Once you've identified these loyalties, it's important to acknowledge them without judgment. Understand that these patterns are often born out of love and a desire to stay connected to our ancestors, even if they manifest in unhealthy ways. Release. Releasing invisible loyalties doesn't mean rejecting your family or their experiences. Instead, it's about finding a way to honor your ancestors without being bound by their struggles. This can involve rituals, symbolic gestures, or simply making a conscious decision to choose a different path. Create new patterns. With awareness and release comes the opportunity to create new patterns that are aligned with your true self. This might mean pursuing a career that fulfills you, creating healthier relationships, or breaking free from financial struggles. Honor the past, embrace the future. Finally, it's important to find a balance between honoring your family's history and embracing your own future. Remember that you can honor your ancestors by living a life that reflects your values and aspirations, rather than simply repeating their experiences. Conclusion: embracing freedom with gratitude. Invisible loyalties are powerful forces that can shape our lives in ways we don't always recognize. By bringing these loyalties into the light, we can begin to understand the subtle ways in which our family's past influences are present. This understanding gives us the power to break free from unhealthy patterns and create a life that honors both our heritage and our individuality. As we navigate the delicate balance between loyalty and freedom, we can choose to live with greater awareness and intention. We can honor our ancestors not by repeating their struggles, but by living our own lives fully and authentically. This is the true gift of family constellation work, a path to healing that allows us to embrace our future with gratitude, free from the burdens of the past. Chapter 4. Uncovering the True Self. Embracing authenticity beyond family patterns. The journey to uncover our true self often involves disentangling from the inherited patterns and burdens passed down through our family lines. Family patterns can shape our beliefs, behaviors, and decisions, sometimes causing us to live lives that aren't fully aligned with our authentic selves. This chapter explores how we can peel back the layers of inherited expectations and unconscious loyalties to reveal and embrace our true essence, free from the constraints of the past. Breaking Free from the Past, a Personal Story. One of the most profound experiences in uncovering my true self occurred during a family constellation session that focused on my career choices. Growing up, I was always encouraged to follow a traditional path, pursue a stable job, secure a steady income, and avoid risks. This expectation was rooted in my family's history of financial instability and a desire to avoid the hardships they had faced. Despite my own passions for creative writing and counseling, I found myself trapped in a corporate job that left me feeling unfulfilled and disconnected. In the constellation session, I set up a representation of my family's expectations and my career choices. As I observed the arrangement, it became clear that I had internalized my family's fears and beliefs about stability and success. The representation of my parents and grandparents seemed to hold a collective fear of financial instability, which I had unknowingly adopted as my own. The breakthrough came when I realized that my loyalty to these inherited beliefs was preventing me from living authentically. I understood that while my family's concerns were valid, they didn't have to dictate my life choices. The session helped me see that I could honor my family's history by embracing my own path, one that aligned with my true passions and values. This realization was liberating. It allowed me to transition from a corporate career to one that fulfilled my creative and counseling aspirations. By disentangling myself from inherited expectations, I was able to uncover and embrace my true self, leading to a more authentic and satisfying life. The Courage to be Authentic, the Journey of Emma. Emma's story provides another powerful example of uncovering the true self. Raised in a family where high achievement was prized above all else, Emma had always felt immense pressure to excel academically and professionally. Her parents had set high standards for her, and she had lived her life trying to meet these expectations, even though they often felt misaligned with her true interests and desires. In her family constellation session, Emma set up a representation of her family's expectations and her own aspirations. It became evident that her pursuit of success was deeply entangled with her need to prove herself worthy of her parents' approval. Her parents' own experiences of feeling undervalued had created a pattern of high achievement and external validation, which Emma had internalized. The session revealed that Emma's true self was being overshadowed by these inherited patterns. She realized that her pursuit of success was not a reflection of her genuine desires, but rather a way to fulfill her parents' expectations. With the help of the facilitator, Emma worked through a process of separating her identity from these external pressures. She began to explore her own passions and interests, which had long been buried under the weight of familial expectations. As Emma embraced her true self, she made the decision to shift her career focus towards creative pursuits that resonated with her personal passions. This shift not only brought her greater joy, but also allowed her to live more authentically, free from the burden of trying to meet others' expectations. Reclaiming our authenticity. Practical steps. The journey to uncovering and embracing our true self involves several key steps. Self-reflection. Begin by reflecting on the patterns and beliefs you have inherited from your family. Consider how these patterns have influenced your decisions and life choices. Journaling or meditative practices can help in gaining clarity about your true desires versus inherited expectations. Identify inherited patterns. Through techniques such as family constellation, Identify specific patterns or expectations that have been passed down through generations. Recognize how these patterns have shaped your sense of self and your choices. Separate yourself from inherited expectations. Acknowledge that while inherited patterns and expectations have their place in your family history, they do not have to define your identity. Work on disentangling your sense of self from these external pressures. Explore your true passions. Take time to explore what genuinely excites and fulfills you. This may involve trying new activities, pursuing hobbies, or engaging in self-discovery exercises to reconnect with your authentic self. Embrace your authentic path. Once you have a clear understanding of your true self, make decisions that align with your authentic desires and values. This might involve changing career paths, pursuing new relationships, or setting new personal goals. Honor your family's history. While you are breaking free from inherited patterns, it's important to honor your family's history and experiences. This can be done by acknowledging the challenges they faced and finding ways to incorporate their lessons into your own life, without being bound by their struggles. Living authentically, the ripple effect. Embracing your true self has a ripple effect that extends beyond your own life. When you live authentically, you not only experience greater personal fulfillment, but also inspire others to do the same. By breaking free from inherited patterns and living in alignment with your true self, you create a new legacy for future generations. This legacy is one of authenticity, freedom, and self-expression, rather than adherence to old patterns and expectations. In conclusion, uncovering the true self involves a journey of self-discovery, healing, and personal growth. It requires courage to confront and release inherited patterns and the strength to embrace a life that reflects your authentic desires. By navigating this journey with awareness and intention, you can create a life that is truly your own, free from the constraints of the past and rich with possibilities for the future. Chapter 5: Compassionate Understanding, Healing Through the Heart. In this chapter, we delve into the power of compassion as a vital force in healing our personal struggles and family history. Compassionate understanding is more than just a feeling. It is a transformative practice that allows us to approach our past, our family, and ourselves with a loving and non-judgmental perspective. This approach fosters healing, not only for our own wounds, but also for the generational pain that may have been passed down to us. The healing power of compassion. Compassionate understanding is a cornerstone of many spiritual teachings, emphasized by leaders like Thich and Nhat Hanh, who often spoke of compassion as the key to peace and healing. Compassion allows us to see beyond the surface of pain and struggle, recognizing the deeper needs and wounds that lie beneath. When we approach our family history with compassion, we begin to understand the reasons behind the actions and choices of our ancestors. This understanding can transform anger, resentment, or confusion into empathy, opening the door to healing. Personal story: my journey toward compassionate understanding. I remember the moment when I first truly embraced compassionate understanding in my own life. Growing up, I had a complicated relationship with my mother. Her strictness and emotional distance often felt like rejection, and it left me with deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and resentment. For years, I carried this burden, blaming her for my struggles and feeling trapped by our strained relationship. It wasn't until I began my own spiritual journey that I started to see things differently. Through meditation and reflection, I began to explore my mother's life from a place of curiosity rather than judgment. I learned about the challenges she faced as a young woman, the losses she endured, and the pressures that shaped her approach to parenting. Suddenly, her actions, which had once seemed harsh and unloving, began to make sense. I realized that her strictness was rooted in a deep fear of failure and a desire to protect me in the only way she knew how. This shift in perspective was profound. Instead of seeing my mother as the cause of my pain, I began to see her as a person with her own wounds, doing the best she could with the tools she had. Compassionate understanding allowed me to forgive her, and in turn, forgive myself for the resentment I had harbored. Our relationship began to heal as I let go of my anger and approached her with a newfound empathy and love. Compassion in family constellation work. In the practice of family constellation, compassionate understanding plays a crucial role. As we uncover hidden family dynamics and bring them into the light, it is essential to approach these revelations with compassion. This means recognizing that our ancestors, like us, were shaped by their circumstances, fears, and desires. They made choices based on the knowledge and resources available to them at the time. By acknowledging this, we can release judgment and open our hearts to healing. 1. Understanding ancestral pain. In one family constellation session I facilitated, a client named Sarah discovered that her deep-seated fear of abandonment was linked to her grandmother, who had been orphaned at a young age. This traumatic experience had created a ripple effect, influencing the family's emotional landscape for generations. Through the constellation, Sarah was able to see her grandmother's pain not as a source of family dysfunction, but as a human experience deserving of compassion. This shift allowed Sarah to release her fear and begin to heal her own emotional wounds. 2. Releasing judgments. In another session, a man named Robert struggled with feelings of resentment toward his father, who had been emotionally distant and critical throughout his childhood. The constellation revealed that Robert's father had grown up in an environment where showing emotion was seen as a weakness, a belief instilled by his own father, a stern and authoritarian figure. Understanding this generational pattern helped Robert to see his father in a new light. Instead of viewing him as the source of his pain, Robert began to see him as another link in a chain of unhealed wounds. This compassionate understanding allowed Robert to forgive his father and break the cycle of emotional distance in his own relationships. Practicing compassionate understanding in daily life. Compassionate understanding is not just for healing family wounds. It is a practice that can transform all areas of our lives. By approaching our own struggles and those of others with compassion, we create a space for healing and growth. 1. Self-compassion. One of the most important aspects of compassionate understanding is turning that compassion inward. Many of us are our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to impossibly high standards and berating ourselves when we fall short. Practicing self-compassion means recognizing that we are human, with flaws and imperfections, and that we deserve kindness and understanding just as much as anyone else. By treating ourselves with compassion, we can heal our own wounds and foster a sense of inner peace and self-acceptance. 2. Compassion in relationships. Compassionate understanding can also transform our relationships with others. When we approach conflicts and misunderstandings with empathy, seeking to understand the other person's perspective, rather than jumping to conclusions or judgments, we create a foundation for deeper connection and mutual respect. This doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but rather seeking to understand its roots and addressing it from a place of love rather than anger. 3. Compassion in the world. extending compassion beyond our immediate circle can also have a profound impact. When we approach the world with compassionate understanding, we contribute to a more compassionate and just society. This can be as simple as choosing to see the humanity in those who are different from us, or as impactful as advocating for those who are marginalized or oppressed. Compassionate understanding reminds us that we are all connected, and that by healing our own hearts, we contribute to the healing of the world. Examples from spiritual teachers. Spiritual teachers throughout history have emphasized the importance of compassion in personal and collective healing. 1. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Vietnamese Zen master, often spoke of interbeing, the idea that we are all interconnected. He taught that when we recognize our shared humanity, it becomes easier to approach others with compassion, even those who have hurt us. His teachings remind us that compassionate understanding is not just a practice, but a way of being that can transform our lives and the world around us. 2. Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama frequently speaks about compassion as the foundation for inner peace and global harmony. He emphasizes that true compassion is not just an emotional response, but a commitment to understanding the suffering of others and acting to alleviate it. This aligns perfectly with the practice of compassionate understanding in family constellation work, where we seek to understand and heal the wounds of the past with empathy and love. 3. Pema Chodron, a renowned American Buddhist nun, teaches that compassion arises from recognizing our shared vulnerability. She encourages us to embrace our own pain and the pain of others with an open heart, seeing it as an opportunity for growth and connection. Her teachings remind us that compassionate understanding is not about fixing or solving problems, but about being present with what is, offering love and support where it is needed most. Conclusion: compassion as the key to healing. Compassionate understanding is a powerful tool for healing the wounds of the past and fostering deeper connections in the present. By approaching our family history, personal struggles, and relationships with compassion, we create a space for healing and transformation. This practice allows us to see beyond the surface of pain and conflict, recognizing the deeper needs and wounds that lie beneath. As we cultivate compassion in our own lives, we contribute to a ripple effect of healing that extends far beyond ourselves. We begin to heal not just our own wounds, but also those of our ancestors and future generations. Compassionate understanding reminds us that we are all connected, and that by approaching life with an open heart, we can create a world where love, empathy, and healing are the guiding forces. Chapter 6: Intergenerational Trauma: Breaking the Cycle of Inherited Pain. Intergenerational trauma is a profound concept that delves into how the unresolved pain and trauma of our ancestors can be passed down through generations, subtly influencing our emotional landscape, behaviors, and life choices. This chapter explores the powerful ways in which trauma can be inherited, and how becoming aware of these patterns can help us break the cycle, fostering healing for ourselves and future generations. The legacy of trauma: how pain is passed down. Trauma is not confined to the individual who experiences it. Its impact can ripple through families, affecting descendants who may not even be aware of the original source of pain. This phenomenon, known as intergenerational trauma, has been explored extensively by psychologists and spiritual teachers alike. 1. Unseen wounds. Imagine a family where a grandmother experienced severe trauma during a war. Though she survived, the emotional scars left her distant, anxious, and unable to express love freely. Her children grew up in an environment shaped by her unhealed wounds, absorbing her anxiety and fear without understanding its source. These children, in turn, passed on these emotional patterns to their own children, creating a cycle of inherited trauma. 2. The science behind it. Research in epigenetics has shown that trauma can actually alter the way genes are expressed, leading to changes in behavior and emotional regulation that can be passed down to subsequent generations. This scientific perspective aligns with what many spiritual teachings have long suggested, that the experiences and emotions of our ancestors can influence our own lives in profound ways. Personal story: confronting my own inherited trauma. I first became aware of intergenerational trauma in my own life when I noticed recurring patterns of anxiety and fear in my family. My mother, a loving but often anxious woman, seemed perpetually worried about financial stability and security, despite having no immediate reason for concern. Her fears seemed irrational to me until I began to learn about the hardships my grandparents had endured during the Great Depression. As I dug deeper, I uncovered stories of scarcity, loss, and hardship that had left a deep imprint on my grandparents. Though they had managed to build a stable life after the Depression, the fear of losing everything had become embedded in their psyche. This fear was passed down to my mother, and subsequently to me. I realized that the anxiety I sometimes felt about money was not entirely my own. It was a legacy of fear that had been handed down through the generations. This awareness was both liberating and challenging. On one hand, it helped me understand why I felt the way I did, but on the other, it made me realize the importance of breaking the cycle for my own well-being and for future generations. Breaking the cycle: healing intergenerational trauma. Awareness is the first step in breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma. Once we become conscious of the patterns we've inherited, we can begin the work of healing them. This process often involves acknowledging the pain of our ancestors, understanding its impact on our lives, and consciously choosing to release it. 1. Acknowledging the pain. In a family constellation session I facilitated, a young woman named Emily discovered that her deep-seated fear of abandonment was linked to her great-grandmother, who had lost her entire family during a tragic event. This loss had created a legacy of fear and insecurity that had been passed down through the generations. By acknowledging her great-grandmother's pain and the impact it had on her own life, Emily was able to begin the process of healing. 2. Choosing to release the trauma. Healing intergenerational trauma often involves rituals or symbolic acts of release. For Emily, this meant participating in a ceremony where she symbolically returned the burden of her great-grandmother's trauma to its rightful place, honoring her ancestors' pain while choosing not to carry it forward in her own life. This act of release allowed Emily to break free from the cycle of fear and begin to build a life based on love and security. 3. Creating new patterns. Breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma also involves creating new, healthier patterns in our own lives. For me, this meant consciously working to develop a sense of financial security and abundance, even when my inherited fears threatened to surface. By practicing mindfulness and self-compassion, I was able to reprogram my mind to trust in my own ability to create a stable and fulfilling life, free from the fears of the past. Spiritual perspectives on intergenerational trauma. Many spiritual traditions acknowledge the existence of intergenerational trauma and offer tools for healing it. 1. Native American teachings. In many Native American cultures, there is a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all life, including the lives of our ancestors. These teachings emphasize the importance of honoring our ancestors and healing the wounds that have been passed down to us. Rituals, such as offering prayers and making offerings, are often used to acknowledge and heal ancestral pain. 2. Dr. Gabor Mate, a renowned trauma expert, speaks extensively about the impact of trauma on both individuals and families. He emphasizes the importance of bringing compassion and understanding to our experiences, recognizing that much of the pain we carry is not our own, but a legacy we've inherited. Mate encourages us to approach healing with empathy and self-compassion, allowing us to break the cycle of trauma for ourselves and future generations. 3. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, introduced the concept of the collective unconscious, which includes the idea that our psyches are influenced by the experiences of our ancestors. Jung believed that by exploring these hidden aspects of our psyche, we could uncover and heal the wounds that have been passed down through our family lines. Practical steps for healing intergenerational trauma. Healing intergenerational trauma is a journey that requires patience, compassion, and commitment. Here are some practical steps that can help you begin this journey. 1. Explore your family history. Take the time to learn about your family's history, particularly the experiences of your ancestors. Understanding the challenges they faced and the traumas they endured can provide valuable insights into the patterns that may be influencing your life. 2. Practice mindfulness and self-compassion. Mindfulness can help you become more aware of the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that stem from inherited trauma. By practicing self-compassion, you can begin to heal these wounds and create new, healthier patterns. 3. Engage in healing rituals, whether through family constellation work, spiritual ceremonies, or personal rituals. Engage in practices that allow you to acknowledge and release the trauma of your ancestors. These rituals can be powerful tools for breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma. 4. Seek support. Healing intergenerational trauma is not something you have to do alone. Seek the support of therapists, spiritual teachers, or healing communities that specialize in this work. Having a supportive network can make the journey less daunting and more effective. Conclusion: transforming the legacy of trauma. Intergenerational trauma can feel like an inescapable fate, but with awareness and intentional action, we have the power to break the cycle and transform the legacy of pain into one of healing and growth. By acknowledging the wounds of our ancestors and choosing to heal them, we not only free ourselves from their grip, but also pave the way for future generations to live with greater peace, love, and security. As we embark on this journey of healing, let us remember that we are not alone. We carry within us the strength and resilience of those who came before us, and by honoring their struggles, we honor our own path to healing. Chapter 7: The Role of Vulnerability in Healing. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, something to be avoided or hidden. However, in the context of healing, especially in the journey of addressing intergenerational trauma and familial wounds, vulnerability emerges as a profound strength. It is through the courage to be vulnerable that we open ourselves to true healing, connection, and transformation. This chapter delves into the vital role that vulnerability plays in the healing process, offering insights, stories, and inspiration drawn from spiritual teachings and personal experiences. Understanding vulnerability, the gateway to authentic healing. At its core, vulnerability is the willingness to be open and honest about our feelings, fears, and experiences, even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. It's about embracing our imperfections and accepting our humanity in its fullest form. Dr. Brené Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability and shame, describes vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Yet she also identifies it as the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, and creativity. In the context of healing, vulnerability is the key that unlocks the door to our deepest wounds, allowing us to address them with compassion and grace. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for true connection, not only with others but also with ourselves. This connection is essential for healing, as it fosters an environment where suppressed emotions, unspoken pain, and hidden trauma can be acknowledged and released. In many ways, vulnerability is the bridge between our inner world and the healing we seek. Personal story: my journey with vulnerability and healing. My own journey with vulnerability began when I realized that much of my emotional pain stemmed from a deep fear of being seen as weak or flawed. I had grown up in a family where strength and resilience were valued above all else, and vulnerability was seen as something to be hidden. As a result, I learned to suppress my true feelings, keeping my pain and struggles to myself. However, this approach only deepened my wounds, creating a sense of isolation and disconnection. It wasn't until I started engaging in therapeutic practices, such as Family Constellation and mindfulness meditation, that I began to understand the power of vulnerability. During one particularly powerful Family Constellation session, I was guided to confront a deep-seated fear that had been passed down through my family, an inherited belief that showing emotion was dangerous and would lead to rejection or shame. As I stood in the circle, representing my family members and myself, I felt an overwhelming urge to cry. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to fully express my emotions in front of others. I let go of the need to be strong and instead embraced my vulnerability. The experience was transformative. As I allowed myself to be seen in my raw, emotional state, I felt a profound sense of release and relief. The weight of years of suppressed emotions lifted, and I realized that vulnerability was not my enemy, it was my path to healing. The spiritual perspective: embracing vulnerability as a path to wholeness. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of vulnerability as a pathway to healing and enlightenment. In Buddhism, for instance, the concept of tender-heartedness is closely related to vulnerability. Pema Chodron, a well-known Buddhist teacher, often speaks about the power of embracing our vulnerabilities as a way to open our hearts and connect with others on a deeper level. She teaches that by softening our hearts and allowing ourselves to feel our emotions fully, we can access a deeper level of compassion for ourselves and others. Similarly, in Christian mysticism, vulnerability is seen as a way to draw closer to the divine. Saint Teresa of Avila, a Spanish mystic and nun, wrote extensively about the importance of humility and vulnerability in spiritual practice. She believed that by surrendering our ego and embracing our vulnerability, we could experience a deeper connection with God and a greater sense of inner peace. These teachings remind us that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a profound strength that allows us to connect with our true selves and with the divine. It is through vulnerability that we can experience the fullness of our humanity and the depth of our spiritual journey. Healing through vulnerability: practical steps to embrace your true self. Embracing vulnerability in the healing process requires courage and practice. Here are some practical steps to help you cultivate vulnerability in your own journey. 1. Practice self-compassion. Begin by cultivating self-compassion, which is the foundation of vulnerability. Allow yourself to feel your emotions without judgment or criticism. When difficult emotions arise, treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a dear friend. This compassionate approach creates a safe space for you to explore your vulnerabilities and begin the healing process. 2. Share your story. One of the most powerful ways to embrace vulnerability is to share your story with others. This could be with a trusted friend, a therapist, or a support group. By opening up about your struggles and fears, you create opportunities for connection and healing. In my own experience, sharing my story with others has often led to profound moments of understanding and support, both for myself and for those I've shared with. 3. Engage in healing practices. Therapeutic practices like Family Constellation, mindfulness meditation, and journaling can help you explore and embrace your vulnerabilities. These practices provide a structured and supportive environment for you to delve into your emotions, uncover hidden wounds, and begin the process of healing. For example, in a family constellation session, you might explore the dynamics of your family system, revealing vulnerabilities that have been passed down through generations. By bringing these vulnerabilities into the open, you can begin to heal the wounds that have been hidden for so long. 4. Embrace imperfection. Remember that vulnerability is about embracing imperfection. It's about acknowledging that we are all human with flaws and limitations, and that it's okay to be imperfect. In fact, it's our imperfections that make us unique and beautiful. By accepting your imperfections and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, you create space for growth and healing. 5. Connect with others. Finally, recognize that vulnerability is a pathway to deeper connection with others. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you invite others to do the same. This mutual openness creates a sense of trust and intimacy that is essential for healing. Whether it's through sharing your story, participating in a support group, or simply being open and honest in your relationships, connecting with others in a vulnerable way can be incredibly healing. The transformative power of vulnerability, a story of healing. I once worked with a client named Emily who had been struggling with feelings of inadequacy and shame for many years. Despite her many accomplishments, she always felt that she wasn't good enough, and she kept these feelings hidden from everyone, even those closest to her. During a family constellation session, Emily was encouraged to explore the roots of her feelings of inadequacy. Through the process, it became clear that these feelings were tied to her relationship with her mother, who had also struggled with similar emotions. As Emily allowed herself to be vulnerable in the session, sharing her deepest fears and insecurities, something remarkable happened. The other participants in the session, who were strangers to Emily, responded with compassion and understanding. They reflected back to her the love and acceptance that she had always longed for, but had been too afraid to seek. This experience of being vulnerable and receiving support was deeply healing for Emily. She realized that her feelings of inadequacy were not a reflection of her true worth, but rather a result of the unresolved pain that had been passed down through her family. By embracing her vulnerability, Emily was able to release these feelings and begin to heal. Conclusion: the healing power of vulnerability. Vulnerability is a powerful force for healing, offering us a pathway to true connection with ourselves and others. It allows us to confront our deepest wounds, to embrace our imperfections, and to experience the fullness of our humanity. By cultivating vulnerability in our lives, we open ourselves to the possibility of profound healing and transformation. As we continue on our healing journey, let us remember that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. It is the courage to be open, to be seen, and to be fully present in our lives. Through vulnerability, we can break the cycles of pain and trauma that have been passed down through generations, creating a new legacy of healing, connection, and love for ourselves and for those who come after us. Chapter 8: Restoring Balance in Family Systems. In the intricate web of family dynamics, balance is often disrupted by unresolved traumas, unspoken truths, and inherited patterns. Family constellation work seeks to restore this balance, allowing individuals to break free from these invisible forces and live their lives more fully and freely. This chapter explores how this therapeutic practice helps restore harmony within the family system, drawing on insights from experienced practitioners and real-life stories of transformation. The importance of balance in family systems. Family systems operate on an unspoken set of rules and dynamics, where every member plays a role that maintains the system's equilibrium. However, when there is unresolved trauma, guilt, or unacknowledged members, the balance is disturbed. Bert Hellinger, the founder of Family Constellation, emphasized that the family system seeks to maintain a balance of giving and receiving among its members. When this balance is disrupted, individuals may unconsciously take on burdens or roles that don't belong to them, leading to emotional distress, relationship issues, or even physical illness. Restoring balance in a family system involves recognizing and acknowledging these hidden dynamics and making adjustments that allow each member to take their rightful place. This process not only brings healing to the individual, but also creates a ripple effect of harmony throughout the entire family system. Personal story: my own journey to restoring balance. My journey with Family Constellation began when I realized that many of the challenges I faced in my relationships stemmed from imbalances in my family system. I grew up in a household where certain topics were taboo and certain emotions like anger and grief were suppressed. This created an unspoken tension that permeated our family dynamics. During my first Family Constellation session, I was guided to set up a constellation for my family. As I chose representatives for my parents, siblings, and myself, I intuitively placed them in positions that reflected how I felt within the family. The facilitator asked me to observe the interactions and emotions that emerged among the representatives. What unfolded was both surprising and enlightening. The representative for my mother stood at a distance from the rest of the family, reflecting the emotional distance I had always felt from her. The representative for my father seemed overwhelmed, trying to hold everything together while struggling with his own unacknowledged grief. As I watched these dynamics play out, I realized that I had been unconsciously trying to maintain balance in the family by suppressing my own needs and emotions. The facilitator then guided us through a process of restoring balance. We acknowledged the pain and grief that had been hidden for so long, and I was encouraged to take my place as a child, rather than trying to shoulder responsibilities that weren't mine. As the constellation shifted, I felt a profound sense of relief and liberation. For the first time, I felt free to be myself without carrying the weight of my family's unresolved issues. Restoring balance in others, a story of transformation. One of the most powerful family constellation sessions I facilitated involved a woman named Maria, who came to me with a sense of deep disconnection from her family. Despite her efforts to build a loving relationship with her parents and siblings, she always felt like an outsider, unable to truly connect with them. Maria also struggled with a persistent sense of guilt, though she couldn't pinpoint its origin. As we set up Maria's constellation, it became clear that there was an imbalance in her family system, related to an unacknowledged member, her mother's first child, who had been stillborn and never spoken of again. This unacknowledged loss had created a ripple effect throughout the family, affecting the dynamics and relationships in subtle but profound ways. The representative for this lost child stood quietly at the edge of the constellation, almost invisible to the others. When the facilitator acknowledged the presence of this child and guided the family members to recognize and honor this loss, something shifted. The representative for Maria's mother began to cry, releasing years of suppressed grief, and Maria herself felt a deep wave of emotion. As we worked through the constellation, Maria was able to acknowledge the lost sibling and the impact this unspoken grief had on her family. By recognizing and honoring the presence of this lost child, the balance in the family system was restored. Maria felt a sense of connection she had never experienced before, both with her family and within herself. The guilt she had carried for so long dissipated, replaced by a feeling of peace and belonging. The role of acknowledgement in restoring balance. A key element in restoring balance in family systems is acknowledgement. In family constellation, acknowledgement involves recognizing the truth of what has happened in the family, honoring those who have been excluded or forgotten, and accepting the roles that each family member plays. This acknowledgement is not about assigning blame or guilt, but about bringing to light what has been hidden so that healing can occur. For instance, in many families there may be members who were excluded, such as a child given up for adoption, a relative who died young, or someone who was estranged. These unacknowledged members create an imbalance in the family system, and their exclusion often manifests as unresolved issues or emotional pain in later generations. By acknowledging these members and their place in the family, we can restore balance and bring a sense of wholeness to the system. Practical steps to restore balance. 1. Acknowledge the past. Begin by acknowledging the past and any unresolved issues within your family. This might involve speaking openly about events or members that were previously kept in the shadows. Remember, acknowledgement is not about judging or blaming, it's about bringing truth into the light. 2. Honor all family members. Make an effort to honor and include all members of your family, even those who have passed away or were excluded for various reasons. This can be done through rituals, prayers, or simply by speaking their names and acknowledging their role in the family history. 3. Accept your place. Recognize your place within the family system. This means accepting your role as a child, sibling, or parent, and letting go of any responsibilities that do not belong to you. By accepting your rightful place, you allow others in the family to do the same, creating a more balanced and harmonious system. 4. Seek guidance. If you're struggling with unresolved family dynamics, consider seeking the guidance of a family constellation, facilitator, or therapist. They can help you explore these dynamics and work towards restoring balance within your family system. The ripple effect of restoring balance. When balance is restored in a family system, the effects can be profound and far-reaching. Not only does the individual experience healing and liberation, but the entire family system benefits. Relationships improve, emotional burdens are lifted, and future generations are less likely to inherit the unresolved issues of the past. In my own experience, after engaging in family constellation work and restoring balance within my family, I noticed positive changes in my relationships with my parents and siblings. There was a newfound sense of understanding and connection that hadn't been there before. I also felt more at peace with myself, free from the unconscious burdens I had been carrying for years. Conclusion: living freely and fully. Restoring balance in family systems is a powerful process that allows us to live more freely and fully. By acknowledging the truth of our family history, honoring all members, and accepting our rightful place within the system, we create an environment where healing can occur. This balance not only liberates us from the past, but also paves the way for a brighter, more harmonious future for ourselves and our descendants. Chapter 9: The Intersection of Personal and Collective Healing. In the grand tapestry of life, our personal healing journeys are deeply intertwined with the collective healing of our families and, by extension, humanity. When we heal our individual wounds, we are not just mending our own hearts, we are contributing to the healing of a much larger whole. This chapter delves into the profound connection between personal and collective healing, exploring how the transformation of our own pain can ripple outward to create healing within our families and even the broader human community. The collective impact of personal healing. Every individual is a thread in the vast fabric of the human experience. When one thread is damaged or fray, it affects the integrity of the entire fabric. Similarly, when one person carries unresolved trauma or emotional wounds, these issues can influence the dynamics of their family and, by extension, the larger collective. Spiritual teachers like Thich and Hat Han have long emphasized the interconnectedness of all beings. He teaches that the healing of one person is the healing of the whole world. This perspective reminds us that our personal healing is not a selfish endeavor. It is a necessary step in contributing to the collective well-being of all. When we work through our own traumas, we often find that we are also addressing generational patterns that have been passed down through our family lines. These patterns may manifest as repeated behaviors, emotional responses, or even physical ailments. By confronting and healing our own wounds, we can begin to break these cycles, creating a new legacy of health and wholeness for future generations. A personal journey: healing my own family line. My journey into the intersection of personal and collective healing began when I started to confront the deep-seated patterns of fear and anxiety that had plagued my life. For years, I struggled with feelings of inadequacy and a constant sense of unease. It wasn't until I began exploring my family's history that I understood these feelings were not entirely my own. Through family constellation work, I discovered that my ancestors had experienced significant trauma, including wars, displacement, and loss. These experiences had left a mark on my family's emotional landscape, creating a legacy of fear and survival instincts that had been passed down to me. As I began to heal these wounds within myself, I noticed changes not just in my own well-being, but also in the relationships within my family. For instance, the anxiety that had once been a constant presence in my life began to dissipate. I found myself more at ease in situations that would have previously triggered intense fear. Moreover, my relationships with my parents and siblings began to shift. We started having more open and honest conversations about our shared history and the impact it had on each of us. This openness created a new sense of connection and understanding within our family, allowing us all to heal in ways we hadn't before. The ripple effect: healing the collective. The idea that individual healing can influence collective healing is also supported by scientific research in the field of epigenetics. Studies have shown that trauma can leave molecular scars on our DNA, which can be passed down to subsequent generations. However, this also means that healing can potentially alter these epigenetic markers, breaking the cycle of inherited trauma. Renowned researcher Dr. Rachel Yakuta has studied the effects of trauma on Holocaust survivors and their descendants, finding that the trauma experienced by one generation can indeed affect the stress responses of the next. However, she also emphasizes the potential for healing, noting that therapeutic interventions can help mitigate these effects and promote resilience. When we heal ourselves, we are not just changing our own lives, we are creating a ripple effect that can influence our families and communities. By transforming our own pain, we create a space for others to do the same, contributing to a collective healing process that can span generations. A client's transformation, from personal to collective healing. One of the most powerful examples of the intersection of personal and collective healing I've witnessed involved a client named Sarah. Sarah came to me seeking help for chronic depression and a pervasive sense of hopelessness. She had tried various therapies and medications, but nothing seemed to provide lasting relief. Through our work together, it became clear that Sarah's depression was deeply rooted in her family's history of loss and unresolved grief. Her grandparents had fled their home country during a violent conflict, leaving behind loved ones and their way of life. This trauma had never been fully processed, and its weight had been passed down to Sarah. In our sessions, we worked on acknowledging and honoring the pain that had been carried through her family line. Sarah participated in a Family Constellation session where she was able to symbolically return the grief and trauma to her ancestors, acknowledging their suffering while choosing not to carry it herself. This process was incredibly emotional for Sarah, but it also brought a profound sense of relief. Over time, Sarah's depression began to lift. She reported feeling lighter, more hopeful, and more connected to her family in a positive way. What was particularly striking, however, was the impact her healing had on her family. Her mother, who had also struggled with depression, began to show signs of improvement. They started to have deeper conversations about their family history, and this newfound understanding created a healing space for both of them. Sarah's story illustrates how healing one person can create a ripple effect that touches many lives. By addressing her own pain, she not only improved her own well-being, but also contributed to the healing of her family's collective wounds. The collective healing of humanity. The concept of collective healing extends beyond our immediate families to the broader human family. As we heal our individual wounds, we contribute to the healing of humanity as a whole. This idea is central to many spiritual teachings, which emphasize that the path to global peace and harmony begins within each of us. As spiritual author and teacher Marianne Williamson famously said, "As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same." When we heal ourselves, we become beacons of light for others, showing them that healing is possible and inspiring them to embark on their own journeys of transformation. Practical steps for contributing to collective healing. 1. Begin with self-reflection. Start by reflecting on your own life and the patterns that may be influencing your behavior. Consider whether these patterns might be inherited from your family or past generations. Acknowledge any pain or trauma you identify and commit to working through it. 2. Engage in family healing practices. participate in therapeutic practices such as Family Constellation, which can help you uncover and address the hidden dynamics within your family system. These practices can bring awareness to inherited patterns and provide tools for healing them. 3. Share your healing journey. Talk openly about your healing journey with your family and friends. Sharing your experiences can create a supportive environment for others to explore their own wounds and begin their healing processes. 4. Contribute to community healing. Extend your healing efforts to your community by getting involved in activities that promote collective well-being. This might include volunteering, participating in support groups, or advocating for social justice. 5. Practice compassion and understanding. Recognize that everyone is on their own healing journey and approach others with compassion and understanding. By holding space for others' pain and offering support, you contribute to the collective healing of humanity. Conclusion: the power of collective healing. The intersection of personal and collective healing is a testament to the interconnectedness of all beings. When we heal ourselves, we are not just changing our own lives, we are contributing to a wave of healing that can touch our families, communities, and the entire world. By acknowledging our own pain, working through it, and sharing our healing with others, we play a vital role in the collective evolution of humanity. Together, through our individual efforts, we can create a world where healing, peace, and harmony are not just ideals, but lived realities. Chapter 10: Living Beyond the Past, Embracing a Future of Choice, Awareness, and Authentic Self. As we journey through the intricate web of our family's history, uncovering hidden dynamics and healing old wounds, we reach a pivotal point, a moment where we can finally step out of the shadows of our past and into the light of a future that is truly our own. This chapter is an invitation to live beyond the constraints of inherited patterns, to embrace a life defined by choice, awareness, and the authentic expression of who we really are. The weight of the past. For many of us, the past can feel like a heavy burden, an invisible weight that influences our decisions, relationships, and sense of self. We carry the stories, traumas, and expectations of our ancestors, often without even realizing it. These inherited patterns can shape our lives in profound ways, limiting our potential and keeping us stuck in cycles of behavior that don't serve our highest good. I remember a time in my life when I felt trapped by my family's past. Growing up, I was deeply aware of the struggles my parents and grandparents had faced. Stories of hardship, sacrifice, and survival were a constant backdrop to my childhood. While these stories instilled in me a sense of resilience, they also planted seeds of fear and limitation. I unconsciously absorbed the belief that life was a battle, that success required suffering, and that happiness was something to be earned through hard work and sacrifice. It wasn't until I began my own journey of healing and self-discovery that I realized how much these inherited beliefs were shaping my life. I found myself repeating patterns of self-sabotage, holding myself back from opportunities because I didn't believe I deserved them, or because I feared that success would come at too high a cost. These were the shadows of my family's past, still casting a long shadow over my present. Choosing a new path. The first step toward living beyond the past is recognizing that we have a choice. We are not doomed to repeat the patterns of our ancestors. We can choose a different path. This realization is both liberating and empowering. It means that we have the power to shape our own lives, to create a future that is not defined by the limitations of the past, but by the limitless potential of the present. One of the most powerful tools for making this shift is awareness. By bringing our unconscious patterns into conscious awareness, we can begin to see how they have been influencing our lives. This awareness is the key to breaking free from the past. It allows us to make different choices, to respond to life in new ways, and to create a future that aligns with our true desires and values. In my own life, this process of awareness and choice has been transformative. As I became more aware of the ways in which my family's past was influencing my present, I began to make different choices. I chose to let go of the belief that success required suffering, and instead embrace the idea that I could achieve my goals with ease and joy. I chose to release the fear of failure that had been passed down through generations, and instead approach life with a sense of curiosity and adventure. These choices have allowed me to live more authentically, to pursue my passions, and to create a life that reflects my true self. Embracing the authentic self. Living beyond the past also means embracing our authentic selves. This is the self that exists beyond the expectations and limitations imposed by our family's history, the self that is connected to our deepest desires, values, and purpose. Embracing our authentic self requires courage. It means stepping out of the familiar patterns of the past and into the unknown territory of our true potential. For me, embracing my authentic self has been a journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance. It has meant letting go of the need to conform to my family's expectations, and instead listening to the voice within that knows who I truly am and what I truly want. It has meant taking risks, trying new things, and sometimes failing, but always learning and growing in the process. It has meant honoring my own path, even when it diverges from the path my family might have envisioned for me. One of the most profound lessons I've learned on this journey is that living authentically is not just about pursuing our own desires, but also about being true to our values. It means living in alignment with what we believe in, standing up for what we know is right, and acting with integrity, even when it's difficult. This is the essence of true freedom to be who we really are, without the constraints of the past or the expectations of others. A future defined by choice and awareness. As we move beyond the past, we open ourselves up to a future defined by choice and awareness. This is a future where we are no longer bound by the limitations of our family's history, but are instead free to create a life that reflects our true potential. It is a future where we can live with greater joy, purpose, and fulfillment, knowing that we are living in alignment with our authentic selves. In this future, we are also more connected to the collective. Our healing journey becomes a source of inspiration and support for others. As we break free from the patterns of the past, we create a ripple effect that can influence our families, communities, and even the world. By living authentically and making conscious choices, we contribute to the collective evolution of humanity, helping to create a world where more people can live in freedom and truth. Personal story: the transformation of my family. One of the most rewarding aspects of my own journey has been witnessing the transformation of my family. As I began to live more authentically and make different choices, I noticed a shift in my family dynamics as well. My relationships with my parents and siblings became more open and honest, and we began to communicate in ways that we never had before. The old patterns of fear and limitation that had once defined our interactions began to dissolve, and in their place, new patterns of love, support, and understanding emerged. This transformation wasn't immediate, and it wasn't always easy. There were times when I had to confront uncomfortable truths, both within myself and within my family. that as I continued to choose awareness and authenticity, the changes began to take root. My family and I began to break free from the shadows of the past, and together we started to create a new legación defined not by fear and limitation, but by love, possibility, and the freedom to be our true selves. Conclusion: the journey continues. Living beyond the past is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing journey. It requires us to continually choose awareness, to continually make conscious choices, and to continually embrace our authentic selves. It is a journey that demands courage, but it is also a journey that offers profound rewards, greater freedom, deeper fulfillment, and a life that truly reflects who we are. As you move forward on your own journey, I encourage you to embrace the possibilities that lie ahead. Know that you have the power to create a future defined by your choices, a future where you are free to live as your authentic self, unburdened by the past. Remember that your healing journey is not just for you, it is a gift to the world, a contribution to the collective evolution of humanity. Together, as we each live beyond the past, we can create a world where everyone is free to live in truth, love, and possibility. Embracing the role of forgiveness, healing the wounds of the past. In the journey of transforming inherited family patterns and bridging generational gaps, forgiveness emerges as a crucial and often transformative component. Forgiveness is not just about letting go of grudges or making peace with others. It is also a profound process of healing that can free us from the emotional burdens of the past and facilitate personal and collective transformation. Understanding the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a deep and liberating practice that allows us to release the hold that past grievances and unresolved conflicts have on our lives. It involves acknowledging the hurt and pain caused by others, as well as understanding and releasing the emotional attachment to those wounds. This process can lead to profound healing, both for ourselves and our relationships. 1. Forgiveness as personal liberation. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as a way to condone or excuse harmful behavior. In reality, it is a gift we give ourselves. By choosing to forgive, we release ourselves from the chains of anger, resentment, and bitterness that can cloud our lives and hinder our personal growth. 2. The role of forgiveness in family healing. In the context of family dynamics, forgiveness plays a vital role in healing generational wounds. Many family conflicts and patterns are perpetuated by unhealed grievances and resentments. By addressing these issues with forgiveness, we can break the cycle of pain and create space for healthier relationships and interactions. A personal journey: forgiving my father. One of the most transformative experiences in my own life involved the process of forgiving my father. Growing up, I harbored deep-seated resentment towards him due to unresolved conflicts and emotional wounds. Our relationship was strained, marked by misunderstandings and unmet expectations. It wasn't until I engaged in a process of self-reflection and family constellation therapy that I began to understand the deeper roots of my resentment. I realized that my father's actions were influenced by his own unresolved issues and family patterns. He had grown up in an environment where emotional expression was discouraged, and his struggles to connect were a reflection of his own past wounds. Through guided therapy and personal work, I came to see my father not just as the source of my pain, but as a fellow human being struggling with his own challenges. This shift in perspective allowed me to approach forgiveness not as an act of excusing his behavior, but as a means of releasing the emotional grip that the past had on me. The process of forgiveness was gradual and involved acknowledging my pain, expressing my feelings, and ultimately choosing to let go of the resentment that had been holding me back. As a result, I experienced a profound sense of relief and liberation. My relationship with my father improved, and I felt more at peace with the past. The transformative impact of forgiveness. Forgiveness has the power to create significant positive changes in our lives and relationships. The act of forgiving can 1. Release emotional burdens. Forgiveness allows us to let go of the heavy emotional burdens associated with past grievances. This release can lead to greater emotional freedom and mental clarity. 2. Heal relationships. By choosing to forgive, we create opportunities for healing and reconciliation in our relationships. This can lead to stronger, more compassionate connections with others. 3. Promote personal growth. Engaging in the process of forgiveness encourages personal growth and self-awareness. It challenges us to confront and address our own emotional patterns and responses. 4. Break generational cycles. Forgiveness can help to break generational cycles of conflict and resentment. By addressing and healing past wounds, we can create a more positive and harmonious family environment. Stories of forgiveness, real-life transformations. 1. The story of Julia. Julia had struggled for years with feelings of anger towards her mother, who had been absent during her childhood. Julia's resentment affected her self-esteem and her ability to form healthy relationships. Through therapy and personal work, Julia came to understand her mother's own struggles and limitations. By choosing to forgive her mother, Julia was able to heal her own emotional wounds and build more fulfilling relationships in her life. 2. The case of Ahmed. Ahmed's family was deeply divided due to a long-standing feud between his parents. The conflict had created a rift that affected the entire family dynamic. Ahmed decided to take the initiative to address the issue by seeking forgiveness from both sides. Through open dialogue and forgiveness, Ahmed was able to bridge the gap between his parents and foster a more supportive and united family environment. 3. The journey of Maria. Maria had been carrying the weight of her father's unresolved issues and emotional distance. Through family constellation therapy, Maria discovered the impact of her father's past experiences on their relationship. By forgiving her father and working through the associated emotions, Maria was able to release the hold that these issues had on her life and build a healthier sense of self. Practical steps for embracing forgiveness. 1. Reflect on your grievances. Take time to reflect on past grievances and identify any unresolved emotions or conflicts. Journaling or talking with a therapist can help in this process. 2. Understand the root causes. Explore the underlying reasons for the behavior that caused pain. Understanding the context and circumstances can facilitate a more compassionate perspective. 3. Express your feelings. Communicate your feelings either through direct conversations or therapeutic exercises. Expressing your emotions can be a crucial step in the forgiveness process. 4. Choose to let go. Make a conscious decision to release the emotional grip of past grievances. This involves letting go of resentment and choosing to move forward with a sense of peace. 5. Practice self-compassion. Forgiveness also involves being compassionate towards yourself. Acknowledge your own struggles and give yourself grace as you navigate the process of healing. 6. Seek support. Engage in therapeutic practices such as family constellation or counseling to support the process of forgiveness and healing. Professional guidance can provide valuable tools and insights. Conclusion: the healing power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is a profound and transformative practice that offers the potential for deep healing and positive change. By embracing forgiveness, we can release the burdens of the past, heal relationships, and create a more harmonious and fulfilling life. Through this process, we contribute to breaking generational cycles of conflict and fostering a legacy of compassion and understanding. As we navigate the journey of forgiveness, we honor the wisdom of our experiences and the potential for growth and transformation. By embracing forgiveness, we unlock the power to heal ourselves and our relationships, paving the way for a brighter and more connected future. Conclusion: a journey beyond the past holistic literary collection. As we reach the conclusion of this transformative journey, Another Self invites you to step into a future unburdened by the shadows of the past. This book isn't just a guide, it's a companion on your path to embracing your true, authentic self, a self defined by choice, awareness, and the freedom to live beyond the limitations of inherited family patterns. This journey has been deeply enriched by the wisdom of many remarkable thinkers, spiritual leaders, and healers. Bert Hellinger, the pioneer of family constellation work, has shown us how to restore balance and harmony within our family systems. Dolores Cannon has opened our eyes to the interconnectedness of our souls across lifetimes, while Dr. Joe Dispenza has illuminated the science behind transforming our lives through the power of thought. Dr. Wayne W. Dyer inspired us to recognize the immense potential within each of us to live with purpose and intention. We also draw inspiration from Judith Orloff, who has emphasized the importance of energy and empathy in healing, and Thich and Hat Hanh, whose teachings on mindfulness have guided us to embrace the present moment with compassion. Brené Brown has reminded us of the strength found in vulnerability, urging us to have the courage to show up and be seen, even when it's difficult. Through exploring themes like intergenerational trauma, vulnerability, and restoring balance in family systems, we've learned that healing is not just a personal journey, but a collective one. As you've delved into these pages, we hope you've found the insights and tools to not only understand and heal the wounds of the past, but to also contribute to the healing of your family and the greater collective. From all of us at Holistic Literary, thank you for walking this path with us. Another Self has been crafted with the intention of guiding you toward a life of awareness, choice, and authentic self-expression. As you continue your journey, may you carry with you the understanding that the power to shape your future is within your hands. Embrace it with the courage to live fully, freely, and authentically. If you found value in this content, we invite you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. By doing so, you'll stay connected with us as we continue to explore and share powerful stories and teachings that inspire personal and collective transformation. Share your thoughts, reflections, or experiences in the comments section of this video. Let us know how the concepts of family constellations, intergenerational trauma, or any of the themes from the book have resonated with you. Holistic Literary Collection, inspiring journeys, one story at a time. Thank you.